How are you doing?
Nice, I'm good. So I don't know if you've done a live with someone before, but we're only going to see the comments on our own side and
Okay.
the people on our own side. So if you want to answer a question from your side, then just read it out loud, because then we're only going to see our side of things.
Got it.
I
Yeah,
wish
yeah.
we could see both, but one day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, it was interesting. I saw a KTLA outside on my way back into my apartment. I was like, I don't know, maybe they're documenting this live show. Maybe something's happening. Maybe it's that big of a deal. But
I'm sure something horrible just went down.
yeah,
if KTLA is there.
Yeah, probably. There were helicopters like swirling around for like the last hour.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's probably
Hollywood problems.
Yeah, kind of an issue. But no, thank you for everyone for sticking with me through the tech issue. I kind of had a feeling Bluetooth might not work out, but now we know. So
I did my YouTube live yesterday, and I had bought a new, because I don't usually use a mic with my phone, but I was going to use one that was like a wireless. And then right before I was like, you know what? No,
yeah.
I'm not going to try it right now. I just
Yeah,
had a feeling,
yeah.
so I'll try it some other time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still like kind of just scream into like my phone microphone sometimes for YouTube videos, and somehow it works. But yeah, but no, I'm really excited to do this combo live show. I know that we have some overlap with some of our topics, and so
Yeah. And like I said, I have a couple of astrology questions. So of course, and then we'll have some people's questions, of course, from here too. So if I see anything good, or if you see anything good that you want to answer, then we'll just do it.
Yeah. Sounds good.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about transits and stuff. So basically, like, say for example, right now, right, we're having this like Mars Gemini transit.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that like affects people in a way.
Yeah.
But like, say people who have Gemini prominent placements,
Mm-hmm.
how does it affect those people differently? Like, say someone who is a Gemini, or someone
Yeah.
who has Mars in Gemini,
Yeah.
like it probably affects them differently, right?
Yeah, no, it really does. I mean, so you can really, so with Mars Gemini, like that's the big transit a lot of astrologers are talking about. And the way that transits kind of work is that there's like a global element to them where it like affects everybody simultaneously. But like you said, it affects different birth charts in a different way. Like the volume knob is kind of turned up for everyone right now in terms of like arguments and debates. So like I've noticed that a lot. Like actually like in my TikTok comments like the last few days, I've noticed a lot of people like just randomly deciding to start this like side debate, and they'll go for like 30 comments. And like I see that sometimes, but like it's like everyone's trying to be an astrologer, right? Like everyone's trying to be an astrologer right now, or trying to be an expert in something, and they're not really sure why they're like so pissed off all the time and like so vocal. And it's like that's the transit. Like that's the transit for everybody. It's like dialing up the sort of the attitude basically. But certainly if you're a Gemini, then this is just like putting you front and center, and it's like you're kind of like looking for those debates like a little bit more like proactively than other people.
Ooh.
It's like you're seeking them out, and that's how you want to like almost express yourself right now. It's like you want to embody this energy of Mars of like, I'm just gonna be like, just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna like say things that like I might regret later. But
there's a lot of that going on. I'm afraid I've been very laying low on TikTok because of how much of that has been going on recently.
Yeah. No, this and I think the awkward thing is that this is happening for so long because it's not going to finish until March next year. That like you can see that Mars is going to retrograde eventually, and at that point people are just exhausted, and that's going to be around Halloween, I think. So like right before the midterm elections, it's like people are done. People are done debating, but I think up until Halloween, it's really going to like be like pure motivation, because Mars is what motivates us, and in Gemini, it's like we are motivated to really go toe to toe with people and prove that we know more than someone else about something. And it's like, again, we're all playing expert right now.
Yeah, and that's definitely what it feels like. And then it's like the people who are playing expert are like, it's like they want to fight to the death. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like if I find myself going back and forth with someone for more than like 2 or 3, like in any situation, like verbally, like in person, online. If I go like we trade more than 2 or 3 comments, I just have to get out. I have to get out of the debate because I know that like it's going to circle the drain right now. But I have Mars Gemini in my chart, so my birth chart. So for me, it's almost like I have to throw myself in to the debate. And so that's why I've been doing more lives, and I've almost been like begging like a scientist to come here and debate me about astrology. But yeah.
So because say you have Mars in Gemini, you're gonna really feel that more than other people. Now say like, okay, if you have like Gemini and Venus, does that mean that that's gonna kind of, this transit is gonna affect your love life specifically?
Yeah, it does. So like Mars is going to come in and activate whatever planet is there. And so if you have Venus and Gemini, it's really like, again, like where's your motivation lying? And like Venus is not just relationships. It's really like, where's the money? Show me the money. It's creative as well. Let's make some music. Or if you're not a musician, let's just like indulge in Spotify or like listen to music. Or, Venus can also be like, I want to go for like the 5-star hotel, not the 4-star hotel right now. I want to go to like Bavel in downtown LA for dinner, like whatever it is. Like if Mars and Venus are conjunct and you're in the transit, then it's just like motivated to indulge, and that usually lands you into a situation where it's like I'm also trying to get along with people and have a good time like as a group. So Mars and Venus doesn't always have to be like marriage. It could just be like, hey, we're on a date, or we're going out to eat. So that's really it. But I think that Mars can be about initiation. So a lot of people with that would also maybe be like, starting that conversation with their future significant other. And look, for some people, depending on their chart, it could even be like their, marriage partner eventually,
Yeah. So speaking of that, so in the beginning of 2020, there was a lot of people like spiritual, people online talking about that the year 2022 was this like year of like twin souls or soulmates and things like that. Do you think that there's any like astrological validity to like saying 2022 being like a special year for love?
A special year for love? I feel like with astrology we almost have to like factor in like the historical context of like the here and now versus back then. And I do think that we live in this day and age where it's becoming very Aquarian. It's becoming very Aquarian. So like a lot of astrologers think that like we're almost into the age of Aquarius. Some are like, no, it's like 200 years from now. How could you like even think that? And others are like, it started in the 60s, the 1960s. So I kind of am of the opinion that we're kind of like mixing and matching age of Pisces with age of Aquarius. And I think like as we're seeing the age of Aquarius happen is through dating apps, because like Aquarius is more collective and it's like not really about like these traditional like.
Is this why everyone says that they're ethical non-monogamy? Is that like very Aquarian?
Yes, exactly. There's like various arrangements. There's various arrangements, and I think that it's very experimental, right? Like there's no like, because I mean you see the typical classic video from the 1950s of like life in America or life in the U.S. and it was like, this is the traditional family and we all have the same lunchbox or like whatever it was, and it's like now we've just completely shattered that because it's like no longer the age of Pisces where we're like worshiping at this altar of like sacrifice. Like because Pisces is about sacrifice, right? So it's like I'm giving up a part of myself for this person or for this family. And now it's like Aquarius, we're starting to realize, there's kind of like a hive mind that we're like slowly developing. We're like becoming the internet and the internet is becoming us. And how does that, like, that's not divorced from our relationships, right? Like, it's almost like there's a plethora of options. And so I think everyone's becoming more Aquarian in terms of like how they relate to people. So if an astrologer says like, this is a great year for love, it's kind of like, well, are we reading the chart only, or are we looking at the 24,000 year cycles of the ages? Because the age of Aquarius does not look good for the family nucleus, whatever you want to call it.
Interesting. So because it's going to be more communal?
Yeah, it's going to be more communal, which I don't think is that different from, some prehistoric societies, right? Like a lot of people are raised in groups. And so you could argue that the family nucleus is somewhat arbitrary and not actually what we need. But definitely, regardless, like there is no set rule anymore around that. But of course, like we also live in a world where there's a ton of rules for everything else. So it's like it's really hard to calibrate all of that. But but beyond that, if I'm taking off like my my hat of just pretending to be a smartass about this, like I really do think like you can't ignore the transits either. So in terms of like what's in store, for people's love lives, it kind of depends on your sign. Like if you have Venus in like Libra or Capricorn or Cancer or Aries, then like Jupiter's activating that placement. So I feel like that's pretty good for those Venus placements. But Mars Gemini, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, because I think that most people are going to like end up pissing each other off anyways.
Yeah, because I'm like 2022 is almost over, and a lot didn't happen yet, And then now that we're in this like confrontational alignment, I'm like, I don't know how it's looking for people.
Yeah, no, it looks really awkward. And I think actually I do think that another piece of this is that Saturn's in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius, it's been here since 2020. We all know what happened then, and it's going to be there until about March 2023. So like I know a lot of people who have said like, I still feel isolated. I still feel like I can't connect with new people, because a lot of people move states, they move cities like during this whole thing, and they're just not like going out. I mean, like LA. I mean, sometimes when I walk around LA, I feel like it's a ghost town. And I remember like pre 2020 LA was a little different. Like we've talked about, and I think that until Saturn gets out of Aquarius, people are going to feel this like sense of fear.
And when is that happening?
When is what?
When is that happening? Is it transiting out of Saturn?
Yeah, so it's I don't know the exact date, but it's definitely like late March of 2023, and after that, it doesn't go back into Aquarius for like 27 years. So it's not. So
it sounds like March of 2023 is going to be pretty good. A lot of these transits are ending around then.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually it does look good, because like also Mars leaves Gemini and it's like going into Cancer. So maybe people are going to start families all of a sudden. Maybe the family nucleus makes a comeback. I don't know, but yeah, no, I do think that it's perfectly natural. So if you're watching this and you're like, I don't really feel like going out still, I feel like Netflixing and chilling and whatever, like I kind of feel like that's natural. But Mars Gemini is like kind of motivating people, but maybe not in like the best way, to mostly just tweet things out, So I don't know if that leads to relationships, because I have Mars Gemini in my birth chart, and I've spent my entire life pretty much like just debating people, and then at like some 11th hour we decide to be friends, but that's just like my process. So yeah.
Nice. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you too is about the whole sign, so I never heard of whole sign until TikTok. And I don't know if this is just like a TikTok thing where people all want to sound smarter than each other, like what we were just talking about, this like expert fighting thing. But it's like all of a sudden I saw recently like, oh no, this astrology that we've all been using is not it. It's the whole sign. And a bunch of people have like kind of said like, oh, I don't use the other things, I only use whole sign. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I pretty much never heard of this. And then all at the same week, a bunch of people on TikTok said this is the way. So I don't fully understand whole sign though. So it's like instead of the degrees.
Yeah, I mean, so full disclosure, I use Placidus, which is like the system that a lot of other astrologers use. Like it's kind of like whole sign or Placidus. And yeah, it's basically a way of dividing the pie. So you have 12 houses in every birth chart. The 12 houses are the 12 domains of life, and they have like a cyclical relationship of like beginning, middle, and end. If I could just like distill an entire book in one sentence, that would be it. But I think that the whole sign system, it's equally divided. So it's like if you're a Cancer rising, then like your entire first house is Cancer. Every house is equally sized, 30 degrees, 12 signs, 360. And so I've come across some arguments like in favor of the whole sign system. And I know that some people, for them, it resonates more to keep everything in one house. But from my perspective, to quote actually another astrologer that I talked about this with a few months ago, whole sign is kind of like using a rotary phone. it's like a little bit, it's a little simplistic, and I know that there are pole sign advocates who would say like it's actually more complicated than that, and it probably is, but you know, I've done how many hundred, like 500 sessions since like last fall or like last October, and it's like I use placidus, and like it seems like every session people are like, yeah, that makes sense, like that house that you have in this birth chart like makes sense, and like most of the time like people are not really bothered by the fact that I'm using placidus at least, but you know, I think that whole sign has been popularized by some people, and I think if it resonates with you, I'm not going to be a hater, but I personally find that placidus is still, yeah, it's kind of the way to go. The only problem with placidus though is if you get too far up in the northern latitudes of like, you know, like Finland or Russia, it's like all of a sudden like the house systems get really wobbly, like really like uneven because of like the view from that part of Earth. It's like all of a sudden they get really stretched out. So it's like I've had sessions where it's like someone's from, I don't know, like Alaska, and it's like I don't know if I can use the placidus system. So it's like a little bit, it's like a mathematical, you know, just breakdown. So yeah.
A couple of my friends that are from Russia that were born there, when I've looked at their charts, and I don't know if this is like similar to what you're saying or if it just happens to be that way, but the people that I've seen that were born in Russia's charts were all on one side. And I did think that was interesting. But I have seen people kind of all with everything in one part from other parts of the world. But I wonder if it has something to do with something like that, the location of where they were born, why everything is kind of in one place.
Yeah, so it does have to do with that. I mean, my read on it though is that, you know, like if you like England's the same way, because that's actually really way further north than I ever like remember, but they have the same thing where they'll have like, you know, two massive houses, and it's like usually the 6th house and the 12th house that I see, which is like the 6th house is like daily rituals, responsibilities, or just like, you know, it's the daily work habits, and then the 12th house is like more of a spiritual zone, but also kind of like escapism and stuff like that. And I almost feel like maybe people in England like embody the traits of those houses. I don't know. They seem like they're pretty like, in like they're all in a band, you know, like everyone's in a band. And I feel like that's their 12th house, just like they all have 12th house placements, so they're like have to go and like dream up some other way of doing things, right?
Wow, that's so interesting. And then I wonder, I am a believer that our soul chooses our life and where we will live. I do believe that our soul chooses the time we're going to be born, which creates our birth chart. And so then that makes me also think is that if your chart comes out that way at that geographical location, is the soul specifically choosing that place partly for that reason? Because those are going to be the elements in their life. Yeah. That is so interesting. I didn't know it was different in different parts of the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think about that a lot. Like, you know, what is your longitude, latitude of like your exact location? Like, are you on the 33rd parallel? You know, like, do you have some like Freemason stuff going on? You know, like, I think the numerology like can definitely be read. And I was actually born on a 333 street, so that's interesting. I don't know. I just randomly thought about that. But there's probably something to that. But again, I think that, you know, the vast majority of astrologers who I was kind of like studying, they all pretty much use placidus. So I think like pole sign is kind of starting to take like some market share. I can't believe I just said that, but it's starting to take a little bit of market share. But I think that in the long run, people will come back to placidus. I mean, I think it's like a useful device. Like pole sign is a useful device as a vehicle for learning. If you just get into astrology and you're like, I don't want to think about intercepted houses. I don't want to think about, you know, the fact that you can have one sign into two houses like that, right? Because you get these weird combinations with placidus. But it's like you just got to live with that, you know. It's like astrology.
Well, that's what those degrees mean, right? Is like those degrees all represent something.
Yes, and that's another thing, because I use the degrees like to the max, because I use them for everything. I'm like, what's the degree of your Mars? Not just like your Chiron or whatever. And it's like I just look at those numbers and I tell people like this is the age when this probably happened to you, and it's like every session they're like, yeah, how did you figure that out? So I think there is like an algorithm going on, right? And an algorithm of like creation. And I don't know what that is exactly yet, but it's like the fact that I can predict, and I'm actually building a data product right now around this. But it's like, you know, eventually I'm hoping to kind of like prove this completely. That's like anyone, like thousands of people could figure this out at once. So like, oh yeah, these degrees all line up for me. And at that point, like, what do we do with it? You know, do we? So
the degrees definitely get pretty complex. Like talking about whole sign and thinking about my chart, my rising is a 0 degree Scorpio. So actually my second house kind of starts still within Scorpio because, you know, because it's at the 0 degree, it didn't go like all the way. So actually my second house starts a little bit still in Scorpio on like the last degrees of Scorpio.
Yeah. I mean, that to me would mean like with Scorpio dealing with like power and influence and also like investigation. It's kind of like that would be something that's like in your personality right away, which, you know, I think makes sense, right? With like what you do. It's like you're a storyteller, but you're also like doing a lot of like, you're doing a deep dive into a topic. Like, I think that's very Scorpionic. It's like Scorpios are trying to find the hidden truths and things. But also in the second house, like, I don't know, second house Scorpio is almost like motivated also to build like personal financial stability too. So it's like it's not just something where it's like you're doing it for the sake of it. Like maybe there is like a motivation to also like have, I don't know, financial resources.
1 degree in that still, like there was like partly just that 1 degree just to get that little bit in there.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, thank God. Your soul was like, I need something to work with here.
I need 1 degree of Scorpio in the second house.
Yeah. All it takes is the 1 degree. The 1 degree.
And it's the 30th or the 29th.
Yeah, the 29th. I mean, that's the last degree. I think that the 29th degree, you know, that's the critical degree, anoretic degree. I notice a lot of weird shit happens when like planets are at the 29th degree. A lot of weird stuff happens. Like if you think about like Mars, for example, like Mars in Aries, every time Mars is at the 29th degree of Aries, something like really weird happens, like where people are just like way too aggressive with each other. And it, like, I remember when Mars was in Aries 29th degree a few months ago. And like even in my own neighborhood, I looked out my window, I was like, what's going on outside? There are these people just going at each other. Like it was so crazy. There was so much conflict everywhere. And I was like, that's the anoretic degree. It's like once a planet's in the 29th degree, it's just like, it just breaks down. Like something really weird happens where it's like the planet just like, it's just like a fountain. It's just like all the energy that's left in that sign just like comes out, and it comes out in a really unfortunate way, actually. I think it's usually like quite problematic. And I had a commenter just now describe it as unhinged. And I think that that's true. I think that's a good way to describe it. So, I mean, look, if you have a planet at the 29th degree, like your sun or something, like don't worry about it. But, you know, I do wonder sometimes about like Mars in the 29th. That can get a little testy.
So someone on this side is asking about Saturn in the 29th degree.
I mean, I could write a whole book about Saturn. It's like kind of hard to distill it. But I mean, you know, Saturn is about like responsibility and maturity. So like maybe at the 29th degree, you know, that almost like maybe would like kind of gel with Saturn's archetype. It's almost like you're maturing into that. So it's like, but I will say, because I use these degrees and convert them to ages, if you have Saturn at the 29th degree, it's like age 29, you're kind of going through Saturn return anyways. And so it's like doubling down. It's almost like you have a Saturn year during your Saturn return. So I think if you have Saturn at 29, like it's probably actually like a double whammy. It's almost like you're having a double Saturn return. Because when I see like Saturn at any degree, 6, 10, 12, I'm like, hey, how was that year for you? And every time they're like, that was terrible. It was a terrible year.
Wow.
I grew up fast.
So the degree of Saturn tends to like correlate to that age that person is when shit goes down.
Yeah. Wow. And by shit going down, it's more like you have to take more responsibility than you're like expecting. Wow. So like some people will have to like take care of siblings, or they will get a job that like they didn't like really expect to get at this age, or they just felt isolated from people, because Saturn is about alienation and isolation and feeling like you're kind of like you're not connected. You're not connected to people. And so I have people right now dropping comments like, yes, this is true for me. They're looking at look at your chart. Yeah, you know, here we go. 10 degrees Saturn, awful year. 14 degrees Saturn, 14. It looks like there's a family rupture. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that happens.
I have to look at what degree mine is at, so that I can think about that. But
yeah, Well, if you're,
I was
and some
also
people are
born
saying, what if
during.
my Saturn's at 0 or 1? I
Oh.
mean, I don't want to give away my secret sauce because I feel like I still need to like really, I still want to like basically like own the rights to this theory. But basically, the degrees recycle every 30 years. This is something I figured out over like hundreds of sessions. So if you have like Saturn at 0, then like 30 would be that another tough year, and then so would 60 and 90, and if you somehow get to 120, so like that applies to all the planets. You just they're going in 30-year cycles because that's just, I don't know, that's just how it works in the
Wow.
in the charts. So yeah.
That is so interesting. Also, I wonder too, with like the, you go from these degrees. I wonder if, things like 29th being so intense is kind of like a regular pattern in nature. You go from like spring, summer, fall, winter, and
Mm-hmm.
winter is where everything dies, and
Yeah.
that's the rebirth. Again, spring is the next one. So I
Yeah.
wonder if it kind of like, because that's every cycle in nature.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the moon, it'll go completely dark.
Mm-hmm.
Women's cycles in their bodies, the hormones completely drop.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this same like 4-season cycle. So I wonder if like the reason why the end is like that is because you're kind of going through that winter stage.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to put it. And it's like we built up that energy, and it's like there's nowhere else for it to go but to emerge into the next sign. And so you are kind of giving up what you have left and surrendering that. But no, I think the degrees are really fascinating, and I think it does point out a chronology, by the way, in someone's life. So it's like if you have a lot of planets in early degrees, then like the beginning of your life was like super formative. Like there was a lot of activity there. If you have a lot of planets in like later degrees, then it's like you got to wait. You're maturing into your planets. Like it doesn't all activate at the same time. It's not like your soul comes into this world and it's just like, I'm fully developed, right? Like it takes a lot of time. But what you said about cycles too is interesting, because in my astrology course right now, I'm telling my students to like think like a tree. Like pretend like you're the General Sherman tree in California here, where it's like the oldest tree I think in the U.S. I'm not sure, but it's like over 2,000 years old. And I'm like, imagine if you were that tree, like you've been that tree for 2,000 years, and you're watching the seasons, the 4 seasons every year. You're watching animals migrate. You're watching people come about, and it's like, if you think like the tree, then astrology is not that difficult, and it's actually like pretty obvious that like time moves in cycles, but so does like psychological states. Psychological states change in day and night. It's like if you give someone an exam at 2 a.m., they probably won't do as well unless they're nocturnal. Probably won't do as well as they would at 2 p.m. So it's like our psychological states wax and wane every day. So it's like, why can't that happen on a more macro scale? And so it's like I'm watching all these scientists talk about like linear time, and like it's like ABCD, and like next year is 2023, but I'm like, next year is actually a combination of like 1888 and 1706 and like these other planetary alignments. It's like a combination
really
of all these
88
things.
next year?
What?
I'm like, is it really 88 next year? Because that's my year.
I don't know. It's not actually, but maybe it is. But it's like everything's already happened, right? So like the past is the future and vice versa. And so astrology is just showing you where on this, like, I don't know if it's quantum. That's actually, I mean, that's where I kind of defer to you, but like where on this like mosaic of existence, like has this already happened? You can just go find it. It's like going through like a little, like a tool shed. It's like we already have something for that. We already have an example of that time and place. And so, for example, like Dante's Inferno, that time period of 1284 was repeated in 2020, like the same planetary alignments in Capricorn. Wow. So it's like it literally felt like a hell on earth, right? And so that is like an example of astrology playing out.
Wow. And like right now, what a lot of people are talking about for the last year is that like we're now in like this Pluto return for the United States.
Yeah. So the U.S. is going through that still. So a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's only February," and like February was like, wasn't like a huge thing for the U.S. But it's like, Saturn's or Pluto's retrograding, and it's like I think coming back to that point around New Year's Eve. So like we still have time. We're still building up to that, and because Pluto's retrograde right now, it's like it's a little quiet. But the Pluto return for any nation, it's happened before. It's usually about it's really a reality check on power. It's like, how have you accumulated power? is the foundation still sound, especially in Capricorn with Pluto there? It's like, is the system actually working for people? And we all know with Capricorn, it's hierarchy. Capricorn, I think about like a pyramid structure, a pyramid scheme, or whatever. And so it's like Pluto and Capricorn, since 2008, it's just been building up this very, impenetrable wall between like the common people and everybody else. And so it's like, and a lot of people are corporate obsessed. I got a LinkedIn when I was 21 in 2011 or something. And it's like, I played the game. I went through all these companies in New York, and I felt like super Capricornian. I'm like, I'm kind of benefiting from the system right now, but I don't feel like I'm ever going to get within like even 5 promotions of the CEO. Like that's Pluto and Capricorn. It's like everybody has like, everyone's like a cog in the wheel. And it's like, it kind of feels secure in a way, because it's like, I know I'm like getting compensated from this corporation. I feel like I almost identify with this company. Like, you see these companies trying to like become personalities, right? And so you have all these tech companies or companies saying like, here, I'm basically going to save you. I'm going to give you like your fulfillment. But then eventually by the time you reach a certain point, you're like, I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of stuck on middle management. I'm actually pretty powerless. I have 1 job or 2 jobs to do a week. And it's like, I feel like I could be doing something more inspiring. So I think that's the age of Aquarius that's coming up. And it's going to happen when Pluto enters Aquarius pretty soon here. That's going to be about the collective realizing, hey, we're at the bottom of this pyramid. We're at the very bottom of this pyramid. And, we have to think more communally about things, because we're so divorced from each other with Saturn and Aquarius. Like, we don't know our neighbors. Barely, right? Like a lot of us don't. We just go back to our box. And so I think that's going to change when Pluto enters Aquarius. It's going to change a lot.
Wow. So it's not too long of a return. So we're only returning to the degree?
Yep. Yep. Okay. So we're referring to the degree. So it's about a year. I think next year in October, though, even then it's going to get pretty close. I don't think it hits the exact minute, but it's like in the same 27th degree. And the 27th degree, I believe, is a Gemini degree. So that's a Gemini degree. And let me just check my math there. Yeah, it's a Gemini degree. And the 27th degree, you think about Gemini, that's about splits.
So every degree also has a sign representing it?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So
no wonder people want to use whole sign. No.
Yeah. Maybe no. I mean, there's so many different. That's something about astrology that is sometimes problematic, where it's like sometimes we will get like too mired in like a little bit of the fine print. We'll get too myopic, but I think it's like a good like little a fine point to make on top of like bigger trends. So it's like what I was talking about. I do think that the Gemini degree does pertain to this, this duality, right? Like Gemini's the twins. We're talking about 2 different structures, the separation of structures, the separation of Earths, right? Like it could be anything. But like, but it's almost like there's 2 different realities that people are living in right now, and it's like, what are those realities? It could be online and in person. It could be again, the common people, everybody else, like whatever it is. Like there is this duality right now, and the thing with Pluto and Capricorn, I talked about this in my first TikTok video about the Pluto return, is that when things are getting very top heavy, right? And so like things that get top heavy, like it's not sustainable, even like physically speaking. So it's like everything's become very top heavy, and I think everyone's aware of it. Like everybody knows that. It's not like a secret. And so I think everyone's just waiting for like the other shoe to drop, which is the Aquarian age. So it's like we're waiting for this more like fire and air energy. So right now we have a lot of earth and water in the skies. We have like Neptune and Pisces, which is all about basically just honestly kind of escaping. And so that's why everyone loves, like they were all in this golden age of television. It's like you realize that that's Neptune and Pisces just pulling you out of like where you really need to be right now. Wow. And like you're not reflecting because you're plugged in to something else. And then Pluto and Capricorn is just again this very like almost impenetrable hierarchy. But that's in Capricorn as an earth sign, so it's about accumulating power. So it's like we're in a very glacial, like everything even though we feel like we're moving quickly with technology, like truthfully as a society, we're actually moving at a pretty glacial pace right now. Like there is a little bit of a stasis, and in 2026, not to throw like future predictions at people, but like in 2026, there's going to be this burst of like fire and air. So we have Saturn in Aries all of a sudden, Neptune in Aries, and Pluto
Oh
in
my God,
Aquarius.
Saturn and Aries. That's gonna be hot.
Yeah. It's gonna be. Well, I think about Neptune too and Aries there, and it's almost like the birth of a new religion.
Wow.
Like I think there's gonna be a new religion
The new
that's
religion
just
is
gonna
gonna
come
be
out of
alien.
nowhere.
Because the disclosure's coming. So the new religion
Yeah.
is probably gonna be aliens. Oh, thanks, guys.
Oh wow. I didn't know you could even do that on these. That's yeah, but
yeah,
I
people
think
can
that
send them
I
to
do.
you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be a religion. It might not be the same type of religion that we're accustomed to, but it's going to it probably be more based in spirituality. But I think what's happening right now on TikTok and on other platforms is like a lot of us are kind of like finding each other and like even what we're doing now, collaborating and like ideating, brainstorming. And I think that's just leading somewhere. It's like all these rivers like are leading. Oh my God. You know, I look really weird with a mustache when I don't have like any facial hair right now, but I did have a mustache in 2019 for like 6 months, and that entire time, people like absolutely like treated me differently. Like I was like
For
a
having a
different alter
mustache?
ego. Like I had an alter ego, and like people were very suspicious of me. Like actually, like people were very like
Well, having a
suspicious.
mustache without a beard does seem a little suspicious.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you're right. You're right. People would like coworkers would just look at me and laugh. They're like, "What are you doing?" But I stuck
And
it out for
also,
like 3
that's the
months.
only thing that guys can really do to like customize yourselves. So,
Yeah,
of course, they have to be critical of each other because, like, women, they have hair and makeup and clothes and all of these things to be critical. All men really have is facial hair
yeah. No,
and
I mean, if you
ties and
look at
shit
my
like that.
TikToks, it's like if you scroll through my TikTok profile, it's like you see every 10 days, like it's like 10 day, like 10 videos where my beard like sort of comes in and it disappears. So it's like it's a very consistent development. And I thought about like getting.
Oh, there you go. That's
Wow.
more like it.
That really put me back. That really put me back to 2013 at Northwestern when I was graduating. And I was like, wow, my life is
You guys are making him time travel.
yeah, I am well, you know, to time travel into to 2026. Thank you for the crown. I don't know whose crown that was. I was kind of just it was in the middle. So I guess we're both crowned.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think of 2026 as this time when there's just a birth of a new like movement. I still don't know what that movement is, but you know, Uranus will be in Gemini even. So it's like Gemini, Aries, Aquarius. Like, what does that mean? It's like basically networking. It's like networking from the ground up. So Aries is just like starting out from scratch. It's just like it's a total new birth. Gemini in with Uranus there, that's almost like to me like Neuralink, like interconnectedness, like with the mind, being able to talk to people psychically. I actually think that somehow like psychics will play a role in that time. So like psychics, we might learn from them about how like humans can telepathically communicate or whatnot. And I think like we're going to put more bones around spiritual subjects that used to be like very taboo or very esoteric. Because I get heat sometimes from other astrologers on this app about like how you can't talk about like the sun as meaning this or Saturn like meaning that, and it's like astrology has not been like not everything has been discovered yet about astrology. Like it still needs like there's more books to be written. I'm going to be writing one of them, but there's still more books to be written. It's like we haven't really found everything out. Like I'm working on this different degree theory. It's a little different than what a lot of people are doing, and it's like it's working. So it's like clearly we still have things to discover. And I think you know if I go and find a psychic, and then we figure out that like they're kind of reading the chart in like without realizing it, and they're coming to the same conclusions. Because I've had sessions with people where they're like, you know, I like someone will say like you were telling me the same thing that a psychic told me last week.
Wow.
Like you're coming to the exact same conclusion. You're giving me the same dates. You're giving me the same years to watch out for, the themes, blah blah blah. And I'm like, presumably that psychic is just reading them. They're not actually looking at the chart. And so again, I think it's like spirituality is multiple rivers right now that we're all working on. We're all working towards that same ocean. And I think we hit that ocean in 2026. And so again, I don't know what that looks like. I hope it's not like, you know, a multi-level marketing scheme, right?
Yeah.
Like I hope it's free. I hope it's free.
I feel like, you know, with all the stuff that I'm into, I definitely feel that that's going to be the coming together of these like communities that we do want to build, these kind of off the grid communities, intentional communities, kind of like living in society in a different way, creating a new society. I do feel that in 2026, or, you know, basically until 2030, we're going to be like in the process of bringing those things together.
Yeah. Well, so in your Earth Shift series, right? Like you were talking about like October 2029 quite a bit. Like, is that
So there's
that's
October 24th of 2029 is when Nostradamus, and I don't know if you know, from the Apocalypse series that I did, it's based off of the Dolores Cannon books where she hypnotically connected with Nostradamus through subjects. One of the subjects was a professional astrologer. So when he was under hypnosis, Nostradamus was showing him in his mind the placements. So he didn't give an actual date. He gave the placements of all the planets. Yep. And then the astrologer worked backwards from that. And that's the date that he came up with. Got
it. Yeah. I should look at that date or that time period. I haven't for a while, but I mean, I think all those same energies are at play. And I kind of feel like the Aries, Gemini, Aquarius energy is like we're starting over. We're starting over as a collective, a different type of collective. And I would almost see Aquarius as like, it's almost a different like federation or something. Like it's almost like a completely different, like, it's not like a border. It's not like a border of like this country. It's more of like, it's just like a completely, again, a psychic link that we all have together as like one, one unit.
Which makes sense because that's also what a lot of the New Earth stuff is really talking about. It's talking about people basically coming to the understanding that we are all one. So it is interesting that astrologically, it's kind of showing that too.
Yeah. And I think we're getting to, well, they call it, Christ consciousness. And I think that, and Amy, thank you, collective consciousness. But that I think what on TikTok, for example, like I've done videos where I'll just kind of trust my instincts. It's like there's an eclipse coming up and I see a bunch of spiders in my apartment, right? And I did a video where I was like, hey, the Scorpio eclipse, don't be surprised if you see them. Don't be surprised if you see spiders right now, because that's 8 legs, 8 degrees Scorpio, and all this stuff. I started connecting it, and like literally, like immediately, all these people were commenting, like, I just saw one, like right before this video. I saw one during this video, right after this video, and like people were stitching it, like taking videos of like a spider all of a sudden, like with my video, and I was like, okay, and I'm not the only person who's done that, but I think that there are ways in which if you trust your intuition and you cast it out into the ether, then like you can confirm theoretically with the internet that like people are having the same thoughts or the same experiences at the same time. And that was never possible before the information age, right? Like we never had any way to test common experiences. I mean, this book right here, Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. This is an interesting book. It's basically him documenting the dreams that people have during certain transits in the sky.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like, if you have a Mars, if there's like Mars is opposing Saturn at the time, a lot of people will have dreams about accidents and collisions because like Mars and Saturn are like both like very heavy planets and they're opposing each other. So we already kind of have like some evidence that there is a collective consciousness. But like why it would be activated by the planets in our solar system is still kind of a mystery, right? Because sometimes people will tag me in scientific videos of a scientist saying like, oh, it's so easy to disprove astrology. All you have to do is talk about how like Mars emits the same frequency as like a microwave in my apartment. So like how do the planets actually influence us? And it's like, you kind of have to just,
I mean, at the same time, do you know how powerful the microwave in your apartment is? Maybe like not like a planet, but if you ever test it, you don't want to be anywhere near that thing.
Well, yeah, it's probably killed some of my brain cells, because I remember like my friend told me like you actually have to stand away from a microwave when it's running, like you really don't want to be putting your head up against it. But
obviously we're so impatient that we just want it to be over with already.
yeah. I mean, I don't pay attention to like anything that people tell me, so I'm like just standing right by my microwave all day. But I do think that there is a mechanism of cause and effect, and I really think there is. And someone is asking about the book Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. It's definitely a good book. But anyways, there is probably a cause and effect mechanism, but it probably exists through like string theory or some other like extrasensory multi-dimensional mode of like field of knowledge, because it doesn't really work. It doesn't work if you're just operating in like a 3D physical space, because it's true.
But
like,
also, what they're not taking into account in saying something like that is that all of the dimensions are in the same place. So actually, it does make sense why we would be affected, because one, we're all using the same particles, but we're also, all the dimensions are here. So of course we're impacted by things that are happening on other planets, because in some weird way the planets are here, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know, I was talking about this yesterday on my live, because someone had asked about the planets, and I don't know if you've ever seen that explanation from Carl Sagan to describe dimensions, and how basically, like, if you're in the second dimension and a third dimensional being comes, you can only see it as a second dimensional being. So like if it's a ball, you only can see a slice of it, you know? So then, okay, so we're in the third dimension. If we see a fourth dimensional being, we might just see like a speckle of light or a dark shadow, because we can only perceive from our dimension. So then it was making me think, and this was way more drawn out, but like the planets, when we look through a telescope and see planets, we're seeing a third dimensional ball. Because we're in the third dimension. It's like a sphere, but we live in the third dimension. So who's to say that that's what a planet is? Because if you're on the second dimension and there's a ball, you can only see like a flat plane. So it's like, how do we even know that those planets are spheres in the sky, you know, and that they're not actually just, we're only seeing a third dimensional version of what's there, and that actually they might just be all here right now.
I actually, I mean, in a weird way, like, I don't know if you ever watched that show Ghost Adventures, like way back when. I think it was on like the Travel Channel, but like they would use like all these like devices, recording devices, to like catch the ghosts or whatever. But like they had all these like audio devices. It was like pretty fascinating. But they would always find like in these haunted houses, like little, there would always be a speck of light that was just traveling like really confusingly, like at moments. And I'm like, you know, maybe it was BS. I don't know, but like it definitely gave me this like this perspective, at least, on like if there was a ghost, how would it like exist? And it probably would just be like a ball of energy, right? That's like not really
as much
visible.
as we'd be able to perceive it, because it's in the fourth dimension, most likely, if it's a ghost. So we can't really fully see into the fourth dimension.
At least not with our like color spectrum, right? Because I think like they would use these devices that were not just like night vision, but it was like a thermal map and like something else, but it like somehow would catch something. And I was like, I mean, it's like science is affected by the observer, and it's biased by the observer. And it's, so I totally resonate with what you're saying about the planets. It's like we are seeing it with what we have, and we are all, no matter if you're Albert Einstein or someone else, like we're all existing, we're all limited by that 3D plane. And I do think that we live in an age where we are over-Saturnized. That's the word that I'm using. You know, because Saturn is this energy of like, it's practical, it's organized, and everything is linear. And so it's like that's been instilled in us from our early educational path. Like we're all kind of raised that way of like, you have to think about things as it's all has to be observable in the 3D, otherwise it doesn't exist. And it's like, that's why people feel so lonely now, because we're disconnected from source. That's what Saturn is. And again, I mean, I might get some hate here from another astrologer being like, well, Saturn is alchemy and blah, blah, blah. But it's like Saturn is actually like over-Saturnized. And it's a I want to trademark that phrase. Yes, Sophie, I want to trademark that. Because you can't just read a textbook and be like, well, Saturn means this, so I'm going to consistently apply it here. It's like, no, like Saturn is a great planet in like an agrarian society that's trying to build like a city. Like that's where you need Saturn to organize. Let's come up with a plan here. Let's actually think realistically. But it's like in our society now, there's so many rules and everything's been compartmentalized. It's like we are stifled, right? And so it's like science has hit its limit in a lot of ways, like in how we understand it right now. And I think that even again, socially, we've hit our limit where it's like we all feel like, okay, it's like, are we all separate? Are we all equal? We got to make a choice here. And, you know, I kind of feel like we're entering this zone again of Aquarian age where it's like we're starting to realize the similarities between.
So what I had read recently, it's in one of my recent videos, but I think it's like the extended version only on YouTube. But they said in this book, theorizing that the age of Aquarius actually starts in the year 2060, and that came from this astrologer Duke something. He was kind of like one of like the OG astrologers, and he believed it was going to start in 2060, and he had his reasons for that, which is interesting because, you know, I do a lot of content about either remote viewing the future or hypnotic progressions into the future. And what's interesting is that they all say that in like this 2060 year that there is going to be these like, you know, awakened communities.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that maybe that would just be more of like a crescendo, because in my opinion, like the age of Aquarius kind of started in the 1960s as well. Like, again, even though like television is an idiot box, as they called it, like, you know, it doesn't exactly make us smarter, but at least it's like we're starting to invest in like a medium of communication that wasn't there, even going beyond the telephone. And it's like, I think that there's just like another medium that we haven't really tapped into yet, right? Like there's probably something that we haven't thought of that's like the television. And again, maybe it's psychic. I think there's some way in which like we're going to combine like a psychic, it's going to be like a psychic platform. And it's like the scientists are going to realize like they need help. They need help from like a spiritual person, because we're running out. We're at a point where we can't create a human brain right now. We can't create a human mind. We can create an arm, create a knee. We can't create a brain. And so it's like, I think you need someone who is able to do that already, right? Who's able to kind of peer in.
Yeah, someone, you know, and it's interesting too, because in those Dolores books, when they talk about the future in the Nostradamus Dolores books, they say that there's going to be a movement of psychic communication during these times of upheaval, that there's going to be these groups that are looking to change the world, that are going to implement psychic communication with each other through symbols. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And it's kind of lining up with what you're saying, that there's kind of this other type of communication that's going to click in eventually.
Yeah, I almost feel like what are the pros and cons of that, though? Because it seems a little bit almost like a little dangerous, right? If like someone just dropped in the comments, what am I thinking right now? It's like, yeah, like what
you're
thoughts?
Thinking that he doesn't know what you're thinking right now.
I was about to give her the answer, or I was about to give him the answer. But yeah, I think that you know, it's like what thoughts are observable and not, and like how do we turn that on and off. So I think that like humanity might not be able to handle a Neuralink kind of thing. Like it feels like once you turn that on, you can't turn it off. And I think that ignorance is bliss most often. Like I don't personally want to know like what anyone's thinking really that much unless I ask them. So that would be problematic. But and that's what I keep going back to, right? If we're trying to unify, like what does that actually look like? You know, like how do we do that in a way in which we don't like
if we
hate
do
each other?
psychic communication, there's no way I want to do it with technology. Like I don't want to do psychic communication with technology. So then it's like what? Targeted ads inside of my freaking brain?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah, not good.
No. Like about like psychic communication, we are dropping that. We're dropping technology.
I mean, you could argue that modern advertising is a form of psychic manipulation, right?
Oh,
like
sure
it's like the messaging doesn't hit us right away sometimes. It's like, you know, I used to do research in digital strategy, and it was like a lot of brands were like, you know, we got to show people an ad like 3 or 4 times before they buy something. But it's like what convinces them to buy is like they're probably just walking down the street someday, and it's like all of a sudden they just thought about this brand because, you know, like something in their environment triggered that.
And because the basis of advertising was to make a person feel inadequate, so that there was a void that needed to be filled by an outside source. You know, so it's also like creating this huge insecurity in people so that they need something outside of themselves. Because people that are totally content probably don't buy a lot of stupid shit, you know? It's like people that buy those things that are just like shit that they don't need or want or anything. It's because, you know, there's something missing inside and they're trying to fill that. You know,
Well,
so it
and
definitely is psychological and probably psychic manipulation going on with that.
yeah, I mean, there was a documentary in the early 2000s. I can't remember what it was called, but it was about
And
like
hold on, Alana, I have watched Westworld. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't get past season 2, I think. But I was gonna say there was a documentary about how Edward Bernays, you know, he was like, I think he was like Freud's nephew, but he like birthed like all of advertising and PR, and it like all started in the 1920s with like selling, I think it was cigarettes or something. But like, you know, it's like advertising. It's been the same model since then. And what happened? Like what happened in 1920s, 1930s? Like Pluto was discovered. And Pluto is ruling over Scorpio, which is about psychology and the psychological realm. So it's not just about like Freud and the psychologists of the time, it's also seeping into our messaging. And then when you get the television, you get the idiot box, you have a medium through which you know, people can soak this in. And I think that's why I love like David Lynch movies, because that's his whole thing. You know, it's like the corrosive nature of, you know, like our kind of like voyeuristic tendencies to want to watch things that are like kind of just kind of odd and like not fulfilling. You know, it's like it's just like a quick hit. It's a quick hit, and then we move on. So I think that there is.
I never move on from a David Lynch movie.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
It
still trying to
sits with
figure
me
out like
forever.
yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the ending of like pretty much all of them. But yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think that we live in a time where, again, the consumerism has gone too far. I think again, the hierarchical nature of our society has gone too far. And there is this appetite for spirituality. Like, I didn't plan to become an astrologer. I had no desire to be one until 2 years ago. Like, I just literally, like, accidentally whacked the back of my head on someone at a nightclub in New York. And all of a sudden I woke up and I was talking to trees. You know, it was like, okay, this is the universe telling me like, okay, like this is time. It's time for you to do something else. You've been in the East Village for 4 years and just doing the same shit every weekend. You know, like think bigger. No hate on New York, by the way. I like New York.
No, New York's great. Let's see. So there was a couple of other things that I wanted to ask you also. Oh, okay. So like was it called the progressive chart? So
Yeah,
it's like
progress chart.
Progressed chart. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So the progress chart is basically an evolving birth chart. So like you have your birth chart of like this day and time you were born, and as you age, your chart progresses, and here's another conversion system we've come up with for some reason. But like each year of your life, so 1 year old translates to 1 day after you're born. So when you're 5 years old, your progress chart is your birth chart plus 5 days. When you're 30, it's your birth chart plus 30 days. And somehow, archetypally, to boil this down, like the first 90 days of your life essentially shape your entire life, assuming you live to 90.
Wow.
And I've looked at my progress chart. I look at it most often for the transits, like because I think the progress chart really matches what I'm going through. And it's like right now I'm basically 31 days past my birthday. And actually, the day that I was at that nightclub and woke up the next morning becoming an astrologer was the day that my progressed Mercury went retrograde.
Wow.
So that's a once in a lifetime event. Mercury's only going to retrograde one time in your birth chart. And the fact that it was September 19th, 2019 or whatever that was, you know, that's not an accident. I mean, it literally was an accident, right? But like there was some meaning to that accident. And you know, in terms of the planet though, that's most important to measure. It's the moon, because the moon is changing pretty quickly. It's shifting, right? Like really, it's only 28-day cycles here. So the moon actually progresses every 2.5 years into a new sign.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're born with, because you have a Libra moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a Libra moon, then by the time you're 28, you'll have a Libra moon again, but you will have gone through every lunar cycle. So halfway through that cycle, so if you have a Libra moon, then like around age 14, you would have had an Aries moon.
Wow.
And that Aries moon would have been conjunct to your Aries Mars at some point. So that would have been like pretty fired up. So I don't know.
Fired up teenage years.
Yeah, I was gonna say what was going on in early high school. Yeah.
Getting kicked out of school.
Yeah. So it sounds about right. But no, I mean, I think that the progress chart is such a useful predictive device. It's like, you know, it's almost like the progressed moon is really how you feel inside. Like you have like there is like a theme to your emotional state, and like, you know, over those 2.5 years. So like if you have a progressed moon in Scorpio, for example, you're probably going to feel like very anxious all the time, and you're not going to know why. You're going to feel like it's the 11th hour. But if you have a Sag moon, you're going to feel very optimistic. Like I can do anything. I can go, and a lot of people move when they have a Sag moon progressed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So someone on this side is asking about the Draconic chart, and you talked about that. I think that was when I started following you, when I saw your video. My sister sent me that video.
Oh yeah. I was in New York on that week, and I just like did that video after brunch. I don't know. I wanted to do a video like in the streets of New York because I just hadn't done that yet. But the Draconic chart is the chart of the soul, and it's really like what's kind of like strip away all the 3D, linear time, all of that. Like how do you what's at your inner core? You know, you take away all the layers. What's at the inner core, and like what persists throughout your life cycles. So every time you have a karmic life, you come back in through the rising sign, through the eastern horizon. You originate as your Draconic chart, and so you know, it's actually worth looking at that chart as a way to, and by the way, to find it, I typically go to astro.com. They have a really simple way to look at that. But the Draconic chart, I tend to find resonates with how if I had to like assign myself like, you know, internal, like whatever, like feeling, like that just like persists throughout my life. Like, I think it is my Draconic chart because it's like, honestly, it's almost like a proof of this. Like every time I do a video, people are like, "You must be a Capricorn. You must be a Capricorn."
It's like everyone says I'm an Aquarius in every video, and I don't have a single Aquarius placement.
Do you have Aquarius in your Draconic? Have you looked at it?
I have to look. I looked at it after your video, and I only remember that I was still a Scorpio rising in both charts, in my regular, wow. And I was a Scorpio rising also in the Draconic.
Yeah.
But it changed my sun sign, and I didn't like it, and I forget what it was. I can't remember. I blocked it out.
Yeah.
Don't tell a Leo that they're not a Leo. Don't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Someone had a joke about that. I went to a comedy show this weekend. Someone was joking about how Leos are very like asking for attention because they can never celebrate their birthday during the school year or something growing up. I don't know if that's true. But
come on, everyone celebrates Leo season. It's everyone's season.
Yeah, no, I think that's true actually. Yeah, I think that I hate my birthday. It's like right before Thanksgiving. It's not a great time. But at least growing up in Minnesota. But I think the Draconic chart is really resonance because when I saw mine, it was all Capricorn, like pretty much all Capricorn. I was like, yeah, that explains like some of my features, some of my demeanor. I like tend to have like a little bit of like a, you know, like a sort of like a professional. I try to like approach like situations very professionally, and I just think that's my Capricorn Draconic chart. You know, like I am a Scorpio technically. I have a lot of Scorpio, so I can be
you
like kind of
so
edgy.
Much Scorpio. You have like the most Scorpio in your chart.
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah, it's like it's not even legal to have more. But like that's why I don't know. I just like I almost try to find a refuge though out of that Scorpio because Scorpio is so volatile, so intense, and it's like you don't want to fall into your. A lot of Scorpios get trapped in their subconscious. That's like the danger of being a Scorpio is like you could get so repetitive and so compulsive with things that you fall into a rabbit hole and you never get out. Because I know Scorpios like that who kind of like go into hiding. They're like the people who have like this like beware of dog sign on their door, but they don't even have a dog. And like their plants are just covering their windows. And you've seen them once. Like I had a neighbor growing up who was like that. I think I saw them once in my life, but they were like 3 houses down from me. That can happen with some Scorpios. They just implode. And so, you know,
the privacy of a Scorpio, and I have that tendency too with my rising, like especially 0 degree. The privacy aspect is like they will hurt you for trying to invade on their privacy, but you also don't know where that privacy boundary is because it's different than other people's. Like that one meme, it's like she goes up to like her grandma or whatever, and she's like, "What are you doing today, grandma?" And she's like, "How about you mind your business?" And it was like, that's Scorpio energy.
Yeah, that's Scorpio.
Like, don't ask personal questions. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm surprised. Like, so you're a Scorpio rising and you're on social media. Like, I'm surprised by that.
But I don't post about myself.
Yeah, well, because a lot of Scorpio risings are like they don't want to like show themselves fully, and like so a lot of them will like maybe they're on social media but they posted twice.
But the Leo wants to. The Leo.
Yeah, it's the Leo. It has to be the Leo. It has to be the Leo. Yeah, because Scorpios are afraid that if they step into the light, someone will figure out a secret about them just by looking, just by being around them. Because because a Scorpio, all Scorpios have secrets. All Scorpios, I don't care who you are, if you're watching this and you're a Scorpio, you have secrets. Just admit it. I did a video last week. I was like, here's a life hack for all Scorpio moons. Just write down your secrets and just try to get that number down to 2. Like every secret you have, just see if you can get that down to 2 secrets, and like give yourself that safety valve. But like you don't have to say everything. And literally, like everyone was like, I would never do that. Like I would not even.
Why would I write it on a piece of paper to be found?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was like, you could just tear it up. You could just, put it through the machine. But like people are like, they're like so tightly beholden to their secrets that they can't even write them out. And I think that says a lot about Scorpio. And I think that a lot of the secrets, by the way, I'm going to get really meta here. A lot of Scorpios are raised in environments with secrets. So that's what I see. When I see someone with a Scorpio moon in their chart, I'm like, you inherit the secrets of your parents. So your parents had secrets between each other, between themselves. So maybe one of them didn't like the other that much, and they just said yes to the proposal because it was 1986, and that's just what people do. And I know I just got really oddly specific there as a Scorpio moon. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, it's just like there are secrets in the household that you have to kind of like work out and process over the course of your life. Because if you have Scorpio moon, then your parents are hard to read emotionally. Like they're just not emotionally there. And so you have to be a psychic. You have to try to read into what they're thinking through their body language or what they're saying. Or sorry, why they're saying it, right? Like not just what they're saying. And so, it's actually the secrets that you want to write. Even if you wrote out and you're like, I'm a Scorpio moon, but I have no secrets. It's like, but you do. You have your parents' secrets too, and that's still sitting with you. There's actually a symbiotic relationship with your parents and yourself, right? Your parents are in the birth chart. So as your parents tell you things, they admit things to you like, I didn't really love your dad. I really just didn't. I thought he was really annoying. Like whatever the secret is. That is actually healing for you because now they've karmically released the secret and you can release it as well. So it's like the things that we see in our early childhood are instilled within us, right? It's not something we escape, and so it's like, if you're a Scorpio moon, again, it's like maybe you are afraid of getting close to people because your parents were afraid of, really being close to you because then you might find out their secret. So like that's how deep the chart goes. It's just like I'm just like going in with a drill and I'm just like getting to the bottom and I'm like, okay, it's like I'm a dentist basically. But yeah, like I'm just like trying to figure out the root of like why this person continually has problems getting close with people or finding the right job. It's like all in the chart.
I find that I'm more comfortable being open about certain things with other Scorpios too. Like people who have a Scorpio, like especially Scorpio sun. I have a lot of friends that are Scorpios. Yeah. I'll tell them things that I wouldn't tell other friends. But it's interesting because I know the Scorpios, you have this like connection of like you'll share with each other, Yeah. It's like you understand the privacy. Yeah.
No, it's actually, it's definitely a relief. It's almost like you're struggling together, But
and also too, I feel like a lot of Scorpios regret telling people about themselves or regret opening up a lot of times. Like when they do, they have so much regret after. Like, oh, I should have never told someone that, or now they're gonna think I'm weak, or they're gonna think I'm this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I actually think that applies to Capricorns too, by the way. So Capricorns and Scorpios, they have the same like prime directive, which is to, this was actually like one of my first videos on TikTok. I was like, Scorpios and Capricorns are the most compatible signs because they're both like trying to accumulate power. And it's like, why not just build this empire together? Which, by the way, Pluto and Capricorn right now, that's Scorpio and Capricorn mixed. So it's almost like we're all living in like a this empire, right? But what I'm saying with that is that you see a Capricorn moon, they operate very similarly to a Scorpio moon. They're like all professional, they're all buttoned up, but it's like deep down, they have these deep fears of showing their emotions, because if they show their emotions, that's a weakness. And if they show a weakness, then they're not going to get promoted next week. They're not going to make it through the calibration meeting. You know, like that's how Capricorns and Scorpios think. Like they're very paranoid about losing their edge. They just don't want to. And with Scorpio, it's like a legitimate edge, like we're wearing leather jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
But a Capricorn is more going to be like, you know, Patrick Bateman or something. You know?
Yeah. Like a put together edge.
Yeah, yeah, like a put together edge, but like secretly like completely nuts. So yeah.
There is a lot of Scorpio and Capricorn action on the comments on my side here too, and a lot of people resonating with what you're saying.
Oh yeah. I actually, yeah. Some people were throwing in comments here too about that, and Virgos too. I think made the appearance, but yeah.
Oh my God, you are a Libra moon, Libra sun, and Libra rising. Wow.
Well, so if you have the same sun and moon sign, by the way, it means that your parents were probably doing the same thing when you were born. They had the same profession, they were on the same page, or they had the same outlook on things. So like I have a Scorpio sun and moon in the 5th house. Both my parents were bass players in rock bands. And it's like, if you think about the 5th house as stage and Scorpio as the shadows, like they were literally like playing on stage, but like kind of on the side, like kind of near the shadows. So it's like, you can literally get that literal with astrology, but it's like, you know, if you see the sun, and I've seen other people where it's like, you know, Libra sun and moon in the 9th house, both parents are lawyers, like that kind of stuff. So I'm sure whoever threw in that comment about the Libra energy, it's like, I'm sure your parents were, yeah, they were doing something.
Wow.
Specific. So
for me, my rising and sun is my parents' sign. So my mom is a Leo, my sun's sign, and my dad is a Scorpio, the rising sign. And actually the most of my family is Leo, Scorpio, and Aries is the majority of everyone. It's a toxic situation. We've got one Taurus in there too.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of Mars energy, right? Because Aries and Scorpio are both ruled by Mars, so there's like a lot of maybe aggression and activation of something. There's a lot of energy.
Aggression.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like, you know, I wish I had Aries in my chart. I don't really have that. That would be nice. But you know, I have the South Node. So the South Node, by the way, is past lives too. So the South Node, if you're looking at your birth chart, you know, the South Node of the Moon is dealing with like your karmic past, and the North Node is like where you're trending towards and what you're becoming in this lifetime. And so if you want to figure out also, again, why you keep making the same mistakes, you should just look at your South Node, because if you have the South Node in Leo like me, it's like I was probably some type of like prince or princess in a past life, and I just kind of, my cup was full, right? Like I figured I got enough praise, got enough recognition, and it's like in this lifetime, if I try to do something just for my own gratification, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like I have to be doing something for other people, because my North Node is in Aquarius. So I have to be like, okay, when is my cup full? Now I'm going to distribute that water to other people. And I've decided, or someone has decided for me, that's going to be through astrology. So it's just like, I'm talking to people about what's happening for you, not what's happening for me. You know, I'm not making videos about myself. And so once you stop as a Leo South Node, you have to basically accept that you're not necessarily like, it's not supposed to be about you this time.
Mm-hmm. So my North Node, I'm pretty sure, is Pisces. I think it's...
That makes sense. Yeah. So your South Node, Virgo. So yeah, in your past life, you were already like a total taskmaster. Like you totally had like a routine in place, and you were like totally perfect at something. I don't know which house. So that'd be the 11th house, I think, for you.
Mm-hmm.
The Virgo South Node. I don't know, but it's like, you know, either way, like you were a practitioner in something, and so it's like you already mastered a certain skill set in a past life, and so in Virgo's an earth sign, right? So it's almost like very mechanical. It's like I can heal. I'm like I'm a cardiologist. Like that's a very Virgoan thing. Or I'm a crafts person. I can like literally like I can craft a violin. But Pisces is more like, all right, like let's not serve people through a hard skill set. Let's actually just like serve a higher power, or get into the our spiritual side, or trust and surrender our ego and just be like, all right, you know, I'm putting all my faith in something else. That is a healing process too. Like Virgo is more of a mechanical healing process. Pisces is a spiritual healing process. So I think like, I don't know if you were like were you always into spirituality, but it seems like it's something you're kind of growing into, right?
Well, I was more into the unknown than spirituality. Spirituality happened for me in the last 10 years. Before that, it was more aliens. Ever since I was a kid, I was obsessed with aliens. And then I got into conspiracies and stuff, but I didn't really get into spirituality until after I was down the conspiracy rabbit hole. It was like my light at the end of the rabbit hole.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to look at the degree of that node too, because if when you find that degree in your chart of like, let's say the node is at 20 Pisces or something, then it would be like age 20 is when you would make that leap and you start to traverse into your destiny this time around. And so I think that would be interesting to check and see if like, did you start to like think about things in that way? But,
and so how long does it take the nodes to kind of move? Do they move very slowly like other planets?
Yeah, so it takes about 18 years for the nodes to return. So when you're 18, you have a nodal return. And, you know, that's when a lot of people go off to college or, you know, do something like that. And so then 36 would be the next one.
Oh, wow. That's my next one. Year 18 was crazy for me. Crazy. So I definitely have to look into that and see what that was about.
Yeah. I think that a Pisces North node, it's like that, like the North node is positive karma. And so it's like you're accumulating positive karma every time that you, release attachments. Anytime that you go beyond your ego, you're getting into the Pisces domain. And so I'm just going to tell you right now, just give up your apartment, give up everything in your life. Just go and travel. Not kidding. But yeah.
I almost did that last year. I actually almost did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wow. Someone convinced me not to, but if the person didn't convince me not to, I don't know if it was the right, I mean, I think I made the right decision because I'm happy with where I'm at, but I almost did last year. Last September, October of 2021, I almost sold everything and went and lived in the travel nomadic lifestyle. I'm kind of glad I didn't though, because I'm not really cut out for it.
Neither am I. Yeah, I've never, that thought's never crossed my mind. I mean, well, it has. I mean, I have Mercury in Sagittarius, so I'm always thinking about like moving. Like I have to be moving. Like whenever I film a music video, because I'm also a musician, it's like I have to be walking forward. I have to be walking towards the camera. I can't be like sitting still. And I'm always thinking about like it would be nice to like go on a road trip with like an RV and just like live on the road for like 5-6 weeks, but it just never materialized. But
I know, that's how I feel. I'm like, wow, that sounds great, but also, you know, I like having a bed and a bathroom.
Basic services are always nice. You know, I think it'll happen even. I mean, now that I'm a full-time astrologer, I might just do it. I could technically do it now that as long as I have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But no, I think that it's you know, the South Node. Like speaking of like, I think this connects with like the Earth shift. It's because I watched your Earth shift series, the YouTube version. I really loved it. By the way.
Oh, thanks.
It's very engaging. And also, I'm jealous of your graphics. I don't have that. I don't have that skill. But
it's pretty easy. I'll show you. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. No. That's like that's the thing that's the only hurdle I have left. I don't have any graphic design skills. I'm just like on Canva, just like messing around and like.
Canva's amazing. Canva is the way.
Yeah, it is the way, but like, it's not consistent. I don't have a consistent like branding yet, at least on Instagram. I'm like still trying to figure out the design. But anyway,
trying to figure those graphics out myself as well.
Yeah. No, it's but I think that you know, with the Earth Shift series, I was thinking about like souls reincarnating and stuff. And that is the concept of like the South Node. You know, it's kind of like in the birth chart, the South Node is really telling you kind of, again, like what was the nature of your past life, but like what did you already like figure out? Because ideally, every karmic cycle, you're like wherever you are in your karmic cycle, like you learned something in the past life. You learned through a mistake, probably, right? And now you're coming back to kind of balance that out, because the North and the South Node are opposite each other by nature. They're 180 degrees apart. So it's like, if you had the South Node in Aries, then in a past life, you were like super self-sufficient, but you probably died alone. You probably died alone, and you were like lacking companionship and wishing you had a partner. And so now in this lifetime, you start out still thinking, I'm independent, I don't need anybody. And then it's like, then all of a sudden you admit by the degree of that node that you're like, I could maybe build like a trusting relationship with somebody. Like, it might be nice to have competitive advantages. Like, maybe we can get more done as a unit than I could get done on my own. Or maybe I need a bag at the grocery store. Maybe I can't carry 5 jars on my own. You know, like that's like a South Node Aries vibe. And now it's like, boom, we're jumping into a partnership, right? And then vice versa. If you have the South Node in Libra, then you were totally a serial monogamist in a past life. You were not yourself. You were basically a proxy of your partner. And you probably died wanting to be on your own. You know, so it's like we're constantly going like this. But ideally, like, you're accumulating somehow, like the algorithm is getting smarter. So it's like, I know how to be independent. I know how to be cooperative. I know how to be edgy as a Scorpio. I know how to be comfortable as a Taurus. And then somehow it's like, I don't know if it's like tied to the Akashic records too. Like, I'm sure someone in this thread can help me out with that, because I'm not an expert on it. But somehow that accumulates.
Everything is tied to the Akashic records. Every single thing that ever is or ever will be.
Yeah. So it's a compendium. Yeah. And I think that, you know, it's like each lifetime you kind of have a choice to like sit with the path of least resistance, which is your past life. So like, I have a South Node in Leo, so my like easy version of my life would just be to like go on stage, which I've done, and it's fun, but it's just like, hey, when I say, hey, look at me, it's just like, okay, I've done this already. Now, again, like trying to get into the Aquarius zone. And so it's like, you have to choose your North Node if you want to actually learn something. But a lot of people like don't choose that. I think that's why astrology is really helpful, because then you can see like, this is my bottleneck, or this is my mission. Like, this is where I have to go.
And so people born around the same time would have the same North and South Node. So is it almost in some way like kind of similar to, say, the Chinese calendar, the Chinese astrology, because that's each year is a different animal, right? And then so what, basically people kind of born in the same year most likely are going to have the same North and South nodes, right? Because that's how slow they're moving.
Yeah, it's about a year and a half. It's about a year and a half that it spends in a sign. So that's a big block of people. Although, you know, 10,000 years ago it wasn't, but nowadays it's like we have millions of people coming in.
So it's almost generational too.
Yeah.
The nodes on like a much smaller generation, but like, yeah, you know, so like, which I think that kind of explains why sometimes we feel a different connection to people that are born the same year as us.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's like, when I got into astrology, I realized that like my graduating class in high school, the South Node switched from Leo to Cancer in like 3 days after my birthday. So I was like one of the last South Node Leos. And then all of a sudden, and I was like older for my grade. And so everyone born after November 18th, 1990, all of a sudden was a Cancer South Node. And so it was like, my older friends in high school were super, like, they were risk takers. They were kind of wild. Like, they wanted to do backflips off of, you know, their bikes and off of a stage. And they were just kind of crazy. And that's because they came in with this Leo energy. And then all of a sudden, my other friends from post November 18th, they just wanted to hang out in their parents' basement. They didn't want to leave the house. They were such homebodies. And it kind of frustrated me. I was like, why can't we just go skateboarding? Why can't we go like wreak havoc in the neighborhood? And they were always like, no, I'd rather just play Gran Turismo 3. I'm like, okay. So that, and that's actually one of the biggest reasons that I just like believed in astrology right away. Like, that wasn't the only thing, but I was like, when I was in high school, I felt that difference. I really felt like there was a clear schism between the older kids in the class and the younger kids. And I could never figure out what it was, but I knew it had something to do with risk aversion. Right. And so that's another, so I don't know if but it'd be worth looking at, like, when the nodes changed for you, because you probably were around a mix of people who were South Node Leos, if they were like, and I feel 89.
Like I can kind of already tell just because I would look at it more from the Chinese astrology side. And a lot of times I'm born 88, where you're the dragon. So other people I know that are 88, we always like shared very similar qualities, and we always would kind of secretly talk about the people who were born in 89 and been like, we always felt like things came a little slightly easier for them.
Yeah.
Like kind of like success came slightly easier for them, even though, you know, they're the year of the snake. The snake is lesser than the dragon. But we always felt, so that's like the thing is like, we're the dragons, but why do the people from a year after us, why are they more successful than us? You know?
Well, that's because they're Leos, right? They're Leos coming in. They're like, I will have this. I will have that. And they're just,
right.
they're
And then
just
that
like,
makes sense if,
Yeah.
they have that Leo node, why it did come much easier for the people who were just like a year and a half younger than us.
Yeah. No, because Virgo is kind of about like struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Like Virgos have to like clock in and out. Because like, I mean, that's what you were doing in a past life. Like, I mean, look, you might have been a specialist. You might have been like a cardiologist or something. But you also could have just been like keeping the lights on in your village. You know, you could have been running the sewer system. Like, I don't know. But like the Leos were like the kings and the queens being like, this will happen. I declare this. And so like, but you know, that doesn't mean that like a South Node Leo is like having a great time, because eventually they, and someone said scientist. So you were definitely a scientist, I guess. Yeah, I buy that. So, you know, if you're a Leo South Node though, it's like it does kind of run its course, right? It's like you get the applause like early in life, and then you're just like, you're sick of it. You're sick of it because it's like the sugar rush is done.
Yeah.
But yeah, South Node right now, the people born right now are South Node Scorpios.
Wow.
I don't know, like if I'd want that. I really don't, because it's like if you have a South Node in Scorpio, you come into this world with that intensity and like maybe a psychic ability, but it's like you're supposed to grow out of that and get into the Taurus North Node as like kind of being grounded. But then it's like Uranus is in Taurus right now, being like, psych, you're still gonna be like totally wild. Like it's like a trap. Like the charts. Like that's another way that I judge transits, by the way, is I ask myself, would I want this birth chart? Would I want this birth chart? Would I want to be born on August 28th, 2022? And the answer for me is unequivocally no. Like, I would not want to be born today, because I would be very quarrelsome with Mars Gemini. I'd be very myopic with Virgo, Moon, and Sun. I would be demanding that someone worship me as a Venus and Leo. I would be, incredibly, like kind of like, again, like sucked into my subconscious as a Scorpio South Node, but I would also not have a clear value system with Uranus and Taurus. Like I would constantly be destabilized. Whenever I think I can find an anchor, it's like Uranus is like, nope, I'm going to disrupt that for you. If you value money, you're not going to value money anymore. Now you're going to value time. And then all of a sudden you don't value time. And it's like, what do I have left? Like, I just think that the energy of the moment, and look, the kids who were born in 2020, they're gonna run businesses by the time they're like 10.
Wow.
Because they have all Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and Capricorn. Like they're already probably outcompeting. They're already outcompeting us probably in some way. They probably already invented a new technology or something.
Wow. I know everyone says like, you know, they say like the pandemic babies are so advanced, you know, and we keep hearing that. So that's another thing too. So, you know, a lot of the stuff, especially talks about it in like the Earthshift series and these different things, we hear all the time about these 3 waves of volunteers. And they say that, you know, in order to shift the planet, this started in the 40s. And basically a first wave happened between, you know, 40s and 60s. Very select people came through. Those are like the original kind of gurus that we started to see coming up in pop culture and even locally. The second wave was primarily during the 80s and 90s. And this third wave is, you know, they say it starts like basically within the 2000s and is happening from then. So they're saying that this third wave, they have like the highest frequency, the highest vibration of everything. And we've been setting the place for them to come in. So I wonder if like astrologically, do we see that the kids since the year 2000 and beyond are really being born with kind of special skills?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gen Z is more set up for success than millennials. First of all, like millennials, I've talked about, I did a video like a month ago about why millennials chose to settle, which was like a little bit like, I don't think it was controversial. I think actually people came to like agree with me. They're like, yeah, it's true. Because like we have Pluto and Scorpio, which is like about a fear, a deep-seated fear that we can't outgrow. And so it's like we choose the suburbs because it's like that's secure. Like millennials are kind of like plagued by their own fears. They're kind of mired in it. But like, and I'm not saying that every millennial will be that way, right? Because you can have other planets to help you in the chart. But generally, that's the theme of millennials is like, yes, destabilizing, breaking down structures and industries, but ultimately working within that industry and not necessarily creating a new society or anything. But Gen Z has like Uranus and Aquarius, so they're super innovative, Pluto and Sag, so they're like very optimistic and philosophical, and they're kind of aspiring because fire aspires. So they're kind of aspiring for a different world. And I think that Gen Z will kind of break. I mean, millennials, we've done a lot of work, right? We've done
a lot. We've carried it a long way.
Yeah, we've carried it a long way, but I think that Gen Z is like going to just kind of catapult from that. Work that we
and it's because like there's this kind of like thing like as a millennial looking at Gen Z, I like all like the generations. I don't really play into all of these weird wars between generations, but Gen Z, they just like kind of skipped over the thing that millennials, we were the last generation to kind of fall for this like trick of society. And we didn't even really fall for it. Just some of us, I didn't go to college, but like most people got like kind of pushed into these systems and they were like the last stride of that. But, you know, most of us kind of got stuck in this like, we want a new system, but then we felt like we had to be a part of the old system because we were too young to break it down. And then you get to your like mid-20s and you're like, actually, this isn't what I've wanted. Whereas now Gen Z can just pretty much like become millionaires off of just being themselves. And millennials are like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on it. It's going to take me much longer.
I think that like millennials had to go through things the traditional way. And including me, like I went to Northwestern just because like I just looked at like U.S. News and World Report and I was like, I want to go to the best school in the Midwest or at least try and like whatever. And I thought that made me cool, but then I realized like that I wasn't really using. I mean, I wasn't not using my skill sets in my career, but I just felt like, you know, did I really have to be there for 4 years and like go into debt like that? Like, I don't really think so. You know, like I feel like if I was doing it over, I would have done something more hybrid of like, you know, maybe a tech skill set, an online course for this and that skill. But I think that Gen Z is moving really quickly because of that Aquarius energy. They're thinking collectively. And I think that they are also affecting, going back to the beginning of this call, it's like they're affecting the dating scene because they're Aquarian, you know, they're super Aquarian. And so they don't have a traditional conception of partnership. Like they just don't. And if you're a Gen Z on here, I'm sorry if I offended you with that. But I really just don't think that you do. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right?
No,
so it's like there's no traditional system, but they are like being raised under Pluto and Capricorn, which again is like this very insurmountable like power structure. So it's not the easiest. But I did want to ask, do you know if you have any like fixed stars in your charts like conjunct to any of your planets, like the like Algol or like, you know, Antares or like any of the like the Pleiadian
That
stars?
was one thing I wanted to ask you about because I saw you post about that, but I've never seen anything along those lines. That was the first time that I've seen people talk about those other star systems in astrology outside of the zodiac signs. Because then wouldn't Taurus be like Pleiadian because the Pleiades star system is it's in Taurus?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, and that video I did is like it's like a hybrid of like documented theories and my own theory. And so it's like kind of a quasi, but I've noticed that it works like because in sessions where I call it out, like it seems to resonate with people. And I've even had people share. So I have a fixed star on my rising sign, like right on my ascendant. So that's how I got into this. So I have Sirius on my ascendant. So basically like, you know, I started to connect with Sirius, started to point it out in the sky, meditate on it, you know, do some nice little levitation with like citrine, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, when I found other people with Sirius on their ascendant, I was like telling them, go meditate, travel to that part of the galaxy and tell me what you see. And we had very similar stories. We had very similar stories of what the planet looked like. I think there's something to it. You know, it's like you can hypothesis test this. And it looks like I have Yasmin is from Sirius too. Hello.
Wow.
So and that's another reason I like the internet, which sounds like such a dumb statement, but I like it because it's allowing us to find each other, right? So it's like we're finding each other in a way that we couldn't before. So I think that's part of this galactic collective mind that's forming. You know, anyways, what I find is that if you have a fixed star, one of the 15 major fixed stars, like on your ascendant, on your moon, on your south node, or on your IC, which is the bottom of the chart that deals with like ancestry, then I really do think that you have an origination in that area of the sky. But the fixed stars, I don't think like completely overlap perfectly with the grid that like other spiritualists use for like talking about these things. So again, it's probably like
the star
complementary.
seed stuff doesn't exactly overlap.
Yeah, I don't think it does because I don't know if I don't think like the fixed stars map perfectly to that system. But
we'll have to look at that. I want you to look at mine
yeah.
because I know a lot about all of those different, like, allegedly what all of these different like beings on these different star systems are. So I would like to go over that. Like at some point we'll look and like I want to see if it matches up to the things that I've heard about those places in different books.
No, let's do it. Yeah, and I think you did a live about that recently, right?
About like when I just did with Crystal Consciousness, we talked about the Pleiadian star seeds and stuff. Now, for me, whenever I go like outside, there's two stars that are always flashing at me. So I'm going to be very interested to see what's in my chart because one is Arcturus and the other one is Lyra. Like I'll go out and I'm like, and I already know what they are because the way that they like flash at me, like I swear, like they flash and I'm like, what is that? And then I'll take my app out and I'm like, it's Arcturus again.
Yeah. I actually just bought a night sky map, like a paper map.
Oh yeah, that thing is amazing. It's a total game changer.
Yeah. No, because I have a star doing.
Something.
Yeah, there's a star that's always glaring at me when I walk outside, and I should really look. I think it is Sirius, but I'm not totally sure. But yeah, I mean, you know, theoretically, again, if like you have fixed stars in your chart like that, then I think you're here to just experience energy that's just different. And like, you know, you could call it a little bit more like basic energy. It's like 3D and 4D. And, you know, you probably came from a place where it's like there's no disputes. There's probably everything sounds very musical and harmonious. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like in a transcendental meditation state at all times. But, you know, it's like, what are we here to do? I think that question is still unanswered. Like, I really don't think we have that answer completely. But that's why I think 2026 is the turning point, because that's when that Neptune in Aries happens. And the whole time that Neptune's been in Pisces since 2011, like we've all been in this fog. Like I remember 2011, 2012, and like, you know, there were some like profound things that happened for me. Like I wrote a book about a dream that I had, and it was all like, it was just like a very trippy time. But also I feel like what's been going on since 2012 is like, it's hard to gauge fact from fiction or like how quickly time is moving. And so I think in 2026, it's almost like this veil is lifted. And then it's like, boom, it's like people understand like much more clearly, like what is the purpose, because Aries is about motivation. So it's like motivation to create that new spirituality. And Aries is about newness. So I think everything's going to move like 3x, 4x of like the pace it's moving now. And at that point, it's like, you know, even then, it's like there's got to be something beyond the 4D, right? Time is not something we can even like predict at a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And exactly. If the fourth dimension is actually time, which it's probably not, but if it is actually time, then yeah, there's definitely more beyond that because time's not even like real, you know?
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, I exactly. It feels very arbitrary for people to set the limit and like that's it, you know. So
personally, I think that we're experiencing the third and the fourth dimension. Not everyone is experiencing the fourth dimension. Some people are, and that makes sense because to define a dimension, you know, it's basically the habitat of a being at that level of consciousness. Third dimension is the habitat of third level consciousness beings. Fourth level consciousness beings, their habitat is the fourth dimension. So the dimension, like, we don't really know what that is. We can only say that it's where beings that are at that level live.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if people are talking about the fifth dimension, we're really just talking about a higher level of consciousness. And then all the beings that are around each other are at that level of consciousness.
Yeah, and I think there's inflection points where we can jump timelines, and I know that you've documented that too. But like, I remember, you know, in my life in 2012, I saw a flash of 2021. You know, like that happened when I was I was driving through Wisconsin after a wedding, and I got a flash. And as soon as I saw 2021, at the time I was still in college, and I told myself after I got that flash, I was like, Evan, you need to go move to New York after college, make as much money as possible, because 2020, 2021 is going to be a disaster. Like, that was the download I got. And so I did that. I didn't even like necessarily like New York the first year I was there, but I was like, I have to be here. I have to be super Capricornian, just like do the corporate thing so that I can basically create a stable safety net for right now. And then when I like started working from home during everything that was happening, and I was like pivoting to astrology, I was like, oh my God, like I set myself up for this moment. All of a sudden it's a slam dunk. I just got into astrology. You know, I got hit on the head. I woke up as like a savant astrologer, and now I have like a platform to talk about that. And I'm just like, this is my moment. And I built, and that's where you shift timelines. And so what exactly happened there, I'm still not sure, but I have a theory that maybe like if you, any year that adds up to the same number, like somehow exists in the same, like, you know, little expandable accordion thing. And so like 2012, 2021, and by the way, we haven't had years that add up to that number in a long time, because we've been in, since like, I think about 1999, that adds up to a lot. Like, we haven't really been in that sort of year where it adds up to 6 in a long time. And I know that, like, people will argue it's a construct, like the dates, but I still think that like there might be something to that, right? Because 2000 was really like a reset, because now we're dealing with a totally new numerology. We're getting into a 2-year, then 2001, a 3-year. Like, what is that? Like, it's almost like we haven't computed that since Christ, or since 0 AD. So it's like, I think that there's there's probably something to that.
So Audrey, thanks, on my side, she said she checked my chart, and Arcturus is at the 24th degree Libra, and my moon is an 8th degree Libra.
8 degrees. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a set methodology yet on like the orb of like where it would apply, but I think that 16 degrees is probably too wide. I feel like that's pretty wide. But there's other stars in the chart, so it's like there's like 15, so it could be something else. I think there's some stuff in Scorpio. There's like 1 or 2 fixed stars in Scorpio that might apply to you. But I mean, again, there might be other ways to find this out, because I don't think it's like necessarily like a factual claim that like if you don't have fixed stars conjunct to what I talked about, that you're definitely not from another place. I think that it's just like that's like a really quick way to figure it out, because like.
And also, what if you're from another place, but in your future life, because time is simultaneous. And I wonder, are we able to see future in our chart in that way?
Yeah, well, you can definitely see the future just through like the North Node, because I mean, that's kind of like destiny of like who you're becoming, but it's also like where you're, possibly headed for future lifetimes. But yeah, I mean, I just find, and this is always just like so fascinating to me, but it's like I find so consistently that like my clients will either have a fixed star like in one of those spots, like on the ascendant, or I want to say like 80% of people who see me have like a very hard aspect between Pluto and the moon, which is a story for another time. But like, basically, I think that kind of proves astrology, because it's like I'm getting random clients, right? I'm getting random clients from all over the world. I'm not like reaching out to them. They're just coming to me. And and it's like not until I plug in their chart that I see everything. And I'm just like, every day I get the same aspect between Pluto and the moon, almost every day.
Do you have other friends on here that are astrologers?
Yeah, on the call right now?
No, on TikTok, because I wonder if they have certain things, like maybe a lot of people are drawn to you with that type of conjunction or
Yeah.
placement, and maybe some other astrologers are drawing people with a completely different alignment. Like maybe that's something that makes them connected to you.
Yeah, no, I think that there is. I'm still actually trying to like rationalize it and like figure out what it would be. But well, I mean, I have a Pluto Moon conjunction in my chart, so it's actually really interesting, right? That like people who come to me have and it's a very specific trait because the Moon is moving very quickly. So it's not like if astrology was BS, right? Like I would get a random distribution of combinations. Like some people would come to me with their Moon not aspecting Pluto at all. There's no relationship with it. Some would be like trining, which is a very harmonious aspect. But every single day I sit down and I'm like, okay, you have a Pluto Moon square. You have a Pluto Moon opposition. You have a Pluto Moon conjunction. I'm seeing that every day, but it's like the other pieces of their chart are different. So it's not like I'm giving the exact same readings, but it's like deep down there is this intensity, and the Moon deals with the home life and the parents and the family upbringing. And so it's like people with a similar upbringing are coming to me. That's really what I'm saying with that.
Interesting.
And so it's like, how can they intuit that from watching my videos? I mean, I have done one video where I explain my chart. So it's like maybe possible that like 1 out of like 100 people would have like booked with me purely because of that. But like obviously,
but
like,
most of the people that are reaching out probably don't really have that skill of being able to fully read the chart, even if they've seen yours.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like stepping in front of my chart on the green screen. It's like it's hard to really figure out what's going on with it. But like, if astrology was not real, it would be a random distribution. But it is always happening. It is always happening, and it's like, and it's not and someone's saying it might be the algorithm. It's not because it's like, yes, the algorithm can steer certain people to your videos, but it's like the algorithm does not determine who would book a session with me, who would click all the way to my website and check out with me. Like that's a totally different level of effort, right? And so people keep finding me. And then it's like, wow, like there is a karmic, there's something going on there, right? And it's like, and I think it speaks to, again, maybe psychic intuition. Like people are psychically figuring out that I have a similar challenge in my chart to them. And so it's like they're looking for somebody who has gone through that, because
I'm already thinking of like some of my other friends that I'm going to ask if there's something that comes up in their readings with people, because I'm very interested in that, if other people have something and if it relates to their chart and their life and their upbringing.
Yeah. No, I'm sure most astrologers would find some type of pattern there. And if not, then I don't know, like maybe that's just part of my mission is to, because I mean,
right?
The Pluto
with those specific people.
Yeah, because the Pluto Moon, like those tie-ins are very intense because that speaks to an early life that was very emotionally non-nurturing and kind of repressed. And oftentimes the parents were just like, it was just very austere and like, they were kind of controlling. And so it's like, I almost feel like sometimes people are coming to me to like kind of walk them through that and how that's affected the rest of their chart. And again, like the rest of the charts are the rest of the chart is totally randomly distributed. Like I'm getting all kinds of signs, but the Pluto Moon thing is always there.
So interesting. And I feel like that probably does happen in all different types of practitioners of different things, that people who have similar, because even, I know how to do hypnosis. I don't do it like professionally. I've done Dolores Cannon's hypnosis on other people, just friends that I have. And I've noticed, because in part of it, you basically have to go through your whole life story before you go under the hypnosis. Because if certain things come up, the person needs to be able to also ask the right questions. So they do kind of need, and also telling your entire life story is super healing, even without the hypnosis. But when I had that experience, even people that I already knew, but I might have not known their whole entire life story until then, I saw so many similarities between the struggles that they had and the struggles that I had. So I wonder if that's maybe even if it's astrological, or if there's some type of frequency or something that makes people more drawn to get help from someone that they secretly on like some energetic level know experienced it, even though if they've never shared it.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's where we start to think about, maybe it connects back to this idea of like galactic origins, right? Like maybe it's like a lot of people are kind of like from that, they had that similar like past experience, or like they're from that same planet, and somehow they're working through this life in the same way or with the same challenges, like karmically. So I always think it's like, you know, karmic groups, right? There's just like karmic groups that have the same lessons. And so it's like part of my lesson was to extricate myself from, you know, honestly, like I think my upbringing really, and kind of free myself from that. And I think that a lot of people, again, who see me, they might be in that. And also sometimes the birth chart is showing people blind spots, by the way. So a lot of these people will have been raised in that type of environment, but they forgot about it. They're like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like once you kind of press them on it, it's like, okay, the moon is your early life. Let's kind of dig in. And as I keep digging in, they're like, yeah, you know, I can see how maybe I am choosing what to do with my life because I kind of still feel afraid of that judgment from my parents. But it's like didn't really click with them until right there. Like when you actually look back at those degrees and the ages, it's like they still have to pull themselves out of that.
So the moon is connected to your early life, is what you're saying. So like, for example, mine is in the 12th house.
Yep.
So that means like the 12th house, like that aspect of my life connected to childhood?
Yeah, I mean, the 12th house is really the like domain of, well, hidden enemies. So you could have had those. And the moon is female figures. So there could be like female figures in your life who are hidden enemies. And, yeah,
I definitely thought it was a
provocateur. Yeah.
I'm like, hidden enemies must be a man.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're the exception to the rule. But yeah, I mean, but I kind of think the moon in the 12th is because the moon is your comfort zone. So it's almost like you're comfortable sometimes being behind the scenes, actually, and also sometimes being comfortable being out of your body. You know, the 12th house is really transcendent. So it's kind of like the 12th house moon has this tendency to escape and like and it's almost like you have to pick that path to escape. But you know, I kind of think that I know some 12th house moons actually in Libra also who have a lot of trouble with like sleep, or they like really, really need to like watch an entire movie before they go to bed. Like they're just like very escapist.
My problem is waking up. I can go to sleep fine. I like have so much difficulty waking up. I could stay asleep like forever. Like I could literally just like not wake up, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my problem is like, I feel like when I'm in that slumber, that's it. Like, I don't want to get up from it at all.
Well, I mean, the 12th house is also the dream world. So it's almost like your comfort zone is to have like the dream world overlaid onto reality. So it's like you would have this ability to straddle both realms simultaneously. And but with Libra, right, it's like you're kind of keeping it together at the same time. So it's not like a, you know, super overwhelming experience. I think it's actually quite blissful. The Libra moon is like, because I remember when I had a progressed Libra moon in 2015, that was like by far the most social like 2 years I've ever had. Like I was like friends with everybody, and I was like, this is so amazing. And so it's like now I know what it's like to have a Libra moon in my chart. And it's like
I always thought it was the Leo why I had a lot of friends, but apparently it's the Libra moon.
It's the Libra moon. No, trust me, it's the Libra moon. Sometimes the Leo sun will not get you will not generate a certain closeness. Like sometimes those Leo moons or Leo suns can be a bit of a turnoff for people, but I mean not always. So don't freak out if you're a Leo. But you know, the Libra moon is pretty balanced. You know, I think every Scorpio moon, myself included, is quite jealous of that placement.
My Libra moon definitely, I can feel it when it kicks in, honestly, because between the Leo and the Scorpio, the way that I want to handle things, sometimes like with the Leo, I want to be above it. Obviously, I'm like, no, I can't be lowered to that. I'm better than that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be confrontational. I'm better than being confrontational. Then the Scorpio side is like, no, they need to know what they've done, and you need to be the one to tell them. And then the Libra moon will usually just kind of make me come to like some type of understanding.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I end up settling at like ghosting. It's bad. The Libra moon is like, no, we can't do either. Let's remove ourselves.
Yeah. Libra will like pretend to like almost make a decision, and then like, will just like recuse themselves from the discussion.
Yeah. Because you know what? Let's do nothing at all.
Yeah. I've worked for Libras before, and it's like they would always like recuse themselves, like even if it was like their job to like decide like who was supposed to get like promoted or like do work on this project. And it was like all of our, like all of us were just gonna explode. We were like, come on, like someone do something about this. But yeah,
make the call.
Yeah, just something. But no, this has been really fun though.
Yes, I'm glad that we did this. We got to do it again one time.
Yeah,
I'll
100%.
have some other questions. I'm sure this is going to make me think of many more.
Yeah, no, likewise, because I've been trying to think about how astrology would fit into like the subjects you talk about, and I think it does, right? Like I think
so.
Started to kind of get into that territory with the extra dimensional kind of.
Let me know if you want to collaborate on something like that, with like seeing like the star charts thing, and then seeing like if people feel connected to that planet, that planet, supposedly happened in our galactic history, what happened there.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I need to keep researching that. Like I don't have all. I think you have a piece of the puzzle that I don't have. Like I really feel that way, and there's probably a research. I'm also super into like research projects. That was like my job before this. So like I think that would dovetail pretty well with what you're doing. So
we should come up with some prediction dates.
Yes. That is my specialty. So yeah, well let's I want to get some dates from you too, from those other prophecies.
Oh yeah, I'll send you the charts. 2 people here are saying that we have the same eyes and the same eyebrows. I'm like, it's the Scorpio energy. I don't know if you've seen these videos where they show a bunch of pictures of people from the same signs and same rising signs, and they have these same qualities. Yeah. Every single time when I see those montages of people who have Scorpio placements, they all have these same type of eyes.
Yeah. I think I saw this comment earlier. I think someone asked if we were related.
Oh yeah, right here. Are we siblings? It's cut right here again. I've seen it 10 times if we're siblings. No, we both just have Scorpio energy.
Yeah. It was funny because I remember once, like long ago, I was dating somebody for a while, and I was like going to their apartment a lot, and it was like 2 years into the relationship, like the security guard at the front door guy was like, I was already up in the apartment, and he was like, "Oh, your brother is already here. He's upstairs." And it was like, for some reason, like the doorman just thought we were siblings for like years. I was like, I don't know if that's I don't know how to take that.
In relationships also. My last relationship, this 16-year-old girl that was sitting near us was like, "Wait, are you guys siblings?" And we were like, "No." Like, no, we're not. I've had that happen to me many times.
Yeah, I guess.
Someone said I thought you were siblings the whole time. No, wow. But I will do a live with my sister eventually if you guys want. My sister's a creator on TikTok too.
So she introduced you to my content, right?
Yeah. So my sister, she does Reiki. She's her handle on here is the self-care librarian. She does Reiki. She loves astrology and stuff. So she had sent me that video of the Draconian calendar.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm keen to learn more about Reiki actually as well, because I've kind of unintentionally done Reiki on myself a couple times, but I mean just like through intuition, but I would like to actually like understand how it works. So I'm gonna
very cool,
go down a rabbit hole with that at some point.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we did this. Thanks so much. We're both gonna put this on our YouTubes, right?
Yeah. I have a YouTube channel as well. Yeah. So this, and I appreciate everybody commenting, by the way,
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So, yeah.
And my sister, that's self-care librarian, if you guys want to follow her.
Awesome. All right. Well, take care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye, guys. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you.